Last week on Resolve to Live Forward, I left you with the following phrase, quote, vision gives today a destination. Repeat, vision gives today a destination. Welcome to Resolve to Live Forward. I'm John Morrow. This is the podcast that comes to you on a number of podcast websites through the services of Buzzsprout. Thank you, Buzzsprout, for being the hosting platform. Got notice this week that since I started my podcast progress, and it's slow and steady wins the race, I've now had 500 downloads in the just over 2 years that I've been doing this podcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Some people would say, whoop-de-doo, 500? It means that there are people out there who are checking me out. Some of them are staying with me. Some of them are moving on because it's not their cup of tea, but that's okay. Resolve to live forward. I'm John Morrow, your host. My email address is johnmorrowcoaching@gmail.com. And today, as I talk to you, we're going to kind of double team on this situation. At the broadcasting, the publication, the release of this particular podcast, it will be Friday. It will be the sixth day of the month of March in the year 2026. Saturday, the 7th, is an important day for many of us. Most states here in the United States of America observe daylight savings time. And so this Saturday night before we go to bed, we have to set our clocks ahead 1 hour. We spring forward in the spring. We fall back in the fall. We are now coming out of Eastern Standard Time where I live, losing an hour of sleep that Saturday night into Sunday, and waking up to daylight savings time Sunday morning. And we will see darkness in the morning when we wake up most times, but we will see daylight later in the evening. It has its pluses, and I like it. But I wanted to talk about that in terms of having vision and giving today a destination. I was so captivated by that statement, but let me just kind of recap for those of you that may be joining me for the first time. My power word resolve, Resolve, the definition that I use is one having a definite, firm plan of action. And then, with the help of my late wife, Donna, we took the letters Resolve and created an acronym. And it's a reminder. The letter R for resilience, the letter E for engagement, the letter S for service, the letter O for organization, the letter L for learning, the letter V for vision, and the letter E for enthusiasm. We've been on the episodes previously doing deep dives into each of these letters, each of these behaviors. These are personal best practices. And we are into the letter V for vision. And we talked a lot about vision last week, but that closing thought that was there, that vision gives today a destination. And with us in the light of the fact that daylight savings time is starting this weekend, I thought it would be great timing to talk about what are we doing with today. I was involved in a meeting on Wednesday night online with a Toastmasters club in Tallahassee. By the way, if you want to meet a great group of people and be a part of considering joining a Toastmasters club, or maybe you're a Toastmaster and you'd like to be a part of a virtual club, and you can be anywhere in the United States because virtual clubs are online only. And this virtual club is Transformation Toastmasters in Tallahassee, Florida, is where they're headquartered. But because they're virtual, they're open to any and all individuals. And those of you who are Toastmasters who may be from outside the state of Florida or another part of the country or even around the world, you could be a part of this group. But I was at the meeting on Wednesday night. We were talking about daylight savings time, and the questions came around to really the focus on, wait a minute, how valuable is time? How precious is time to us? And do we visualize time in such a way that we picture it being used to the best possible extent while at the same time remembering a rule that I've talked about in the past, and that is don't get ahead of yourself. You only have now. And what you do now is important. If you're watching this right now, thank you. You're doing something in your now that I hope is beneficial to you, but I thank you because it means the world to me that you are listening or watching. But what you do now is important. Uh, there's an author, I think his last name is Sorensen. I haven't picked up the book and looked at it recently, so I can't remember what his first name is, but the book's entitled Live the Now, Live in the Now. And Dr. Sorensen talks about the idea that sometimes we borrow trouble from tomorrow. So he gave us in context the story of how we need to picture time. Yesterday is no longer here. That's the past. It's irrelevant. You can't go back and do anything about yesterday. So why dwell on it? Other than, did you learn something? And if so, can you apply it in your life either immediately, or can you apply it, put it on a list of things that you add to your development as a human being and to your forward living mindset, and it will help you. I always say failures are really not defeat. They don't have to be. They can simply be opportunities to learn. And failures also can be, okay, that doesn't work, so let's go to the next thing and see if it works and just keep working at it. That's a Thomas Edison type thing. But you don't want to think about yesterday. And if you're thinking about tomorrow, it's okay to make plans. Part of the entire process of the resolve mindset, particularly as it relates to organization and having a definite firm plan of action, is that you have a definite end in mind. And you realize that as you see that end in mind, there are intermediate steps that have to take place to achieve that end. These are those immediate, short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals that result in the final outcomes. But if you're worrying and spending too much time thinking about tomorrow or the next week or the next month, you're robbing today. And Dr. Sorensen said, tomorrow is an abstract. Anything can happen. And further, not to be a downer or to put a dark spin on it, but we don't know that we'll see tomorrow. I believe in the confidence of believing that if I wake up, I'm going to give it my best. But I may not wake up. Same goes for you. It happens. I never expected that the morning of Sunday, June the 2nd, 2019, my wife would wake up, sit down in the living room. We would have a conversation. I would go to the back to get dressed. And in the kitchen, when she was washing the bowls that we feed our cats in, she collapsed and actually had cardiac arrest right there on the spot. But it wasn't until 45 minutes later that they actually had to declare they couldn't bring her back. And that was when they actually announced that time of death was 11 minutes after 11 a.m., but it was actually 40 to 45 minutes before that she was collapsed on the floor. And as I was reminded, she was already gone. She didn't plan on that. I didn't plan on that. Didn't expect that. So these things do happen. But tomorrow's an abstract. Today is all that matters. What did you do in the day? And I got to thinking about visualization as part of the destination for today. Think about that. Everybody talks about visualization. It's like out there. Wait a minute. Yeah, it can be out there, but why not have it be out there now as you see yourself going forward? I'll use an example. Wednesday night, after the meeting was over with, I sat down and I started working, excuse me, on a speech. I had an invitation to be a speaker at the Citrus Center Kiwanis Club of Lakeland, Florida. And they are a breakfast club. Their meeting starts at 7:30 at a very, very great place, by the way, for breakfast. But I have to be there at 7. But I'm the featured speaker. I've got a 30-minute slot. And I've been asked to talk about communications and leadership, which is a very, very integral part of my life because I've been a part of Toastmasters for 38 years. I want to be sure that in that 30 minutes, I give them the most meaty stuff possible. So that was what I was doing in the writing process. But that morning, as I was making my way to that breakfast gathering and that meeting, I was visualizing, how am I going to do this? Now, somebody would say, John, you've given hundreds of speeches. Yes. But do you know that I think about every one and I imagine in my mind, I visualize, how am I going to do this? How am I going to present myself orally? What am I going to say? What words do I need to use that are going to impact the audience? What about my body language and how my vocal variety can raise or lower the temperature of the room and the gestures that I use that you see me here using right now and other things. Plus, there's this thing that a good friend of mine, Mark Guy, who is an incredible communicator, Mark dubbed that relationship between a speaker and an audience as an energy exchange. Now, I do have a rule of thumb when it comes to visualizing the audience. And this is not being cynical. This is allowing myself the opportunity to accept the fact that no matter who I speak to, I'm not going to be all things to all people. And by the way, if you're thinking about being a speaker, that's one of the things you need to adopt, because if you don't adopt that idea that there are going to be some people that don't particularly care for you as far as just being a speaker or your message, or even don't want to care for the fact the way you speak or your style or your look or whatnot, you might get your feelings hurt. No, you need to begin to realize that's just life. You can't please everybody. And I use a rule of three. I immediately assume, and I realize assume is not a particularly great word, but I think it's important to say that up to a third of the people may not care for what I have to say. And those reasons don't matter. The point is, a third won't be trying, they'll be tuning me out. Then there's a third that if they could pause long enough to listen to me, I think they might possibly like what I have to share, but they got stuff on their mind. It's the beginning of the day, and maybe they're borrowing from later in the day, so they're distracted. And when you're in an audience, have you ever noticed the people that are looking at their phone? Okay. Uh, I try not to do that, but it happens. So that's a third that I need to realize I may or may not get their attention. But there will be a third in this energy exchange where, as I'm looking at the audience, I can clearly see with my eyes that there's a connection. The eyes are in connection. The body language is communicating. I'm evidently getting through. And what I do as a speaker is, while I continue to present, depending upon the time frame that I'm working with, I regularly move my eyes across the audience and I connect eye contact wise with those people that I can tell are tuned in to what I'm saying. They become the energy exchange that feeds my drive and my enthusiasm as a communicator, because I'm getting the sense that I'm making an impact in their lives. And to me, that's a good thing. Now, think about it for a second. The vision, a vision gives you a destination, not just for tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, gives you a destination for today. A destination for that's transformative if you think about it. Everything that you do, whether it's scheduled or whether it's part of the process of getting regular standard procedures and things done in the course of a day, or those unexpected things that come. You remember I told you the letter E, engagement, means not just engaging people and opportunities and groups and chances, but also engaging the unexpected and knowing what to do with the unexpected, and also realizing that sometimes you don't want to engage it, so the fight or flight thing kicks in. But here, what you're doing is you're engaging an opportunity, and you are going to visualize that opportunity as to how you're best going to engage with that particular group that you're trying to connect with. And the destination for the day sometimes is that schedule of events that you have planned, that laundry list of stuff that you want to do, that to-do list of work around the house, that grocery list if you want to go grocery shopping. Plus, you may have things on your schedule. I know that my schedule sometimes gets very, very busy. And in that process, too, I have to take time to record this podcast and get it up so that it comes out at 12 noon on Fridays. I don't always get it out at 12 noon on Friday, by the way. Subsequent to last week's episode actually didn't get out until the beginning of this week. But again, the point is there's a destination in the business of visualizing, making today successful. Living in the now means you're pouring your best into the moment, but you're also pouring your best with an eye to take it and move it forward. And move it forward in a very positive way, seeking to avoid things which would be prohibitive. There are always going to be things that are thrown in your path. Is it by design? No, but we live in a world where there is a degree of randomness. But as I've said before, living forward's a choice. It's not random. And honestly, living forward doesn't happen by accident. Living forward is what you choose to do because of what life does happen to you. Oh, this is the part that's extremely important to me in the idea of this process of vision giving today a destination. Have you ever heard it said, you need to get to where it doesn't matter so much what happens to you. What matters is what you do with what happens to you. But you see, I think that plays to sometimes a victimization mindset. I got to deal with whatever happens to me. Woe is me. And they give it their best shot. But if you're not really thinking of something unpleasant happening and you're thinking about making the most out of your day and you're living in every single moment of the day because your vision is focused on productive, forward living mindsets, then what happens is that your day lights up and destinations appear. And those destinations happen today. And they give rise to the potential for more destinations to happen tomorrow and in the days ahead. But if you are worried about something potentially happening in the future, whether today or tomorrow or next week and so forth, the time you spent thinking about that is robbing you of living now and living with the vision to create today's destination. It isn't gobbledygook. It's actually a very powerful thought process. So let me get my papers here. As I bring this segment here again on vision to a close, let me just open up following things. Okay. In vision, you live with intention and not inertia. Inertia is where you just go along with the flow, and sometimes it's good to go along with the flow, but actually, intention is where you're making the choices. You are the person choosing the destinations and the destiny of your day. The best practices that you have when you exercise, the best practice of vision is you find and define what a good life means to you, not to others, what it means to you. You set your short-term direction even when long-term clarity is still forming. Let me say that again. You set a short-term direction even when the long-term is still not quite clear. Like I said before, if you have an end in mind, there are certain things that have to take place leading up to it being accomplished. And that forms itself based upon you meeting expectations in the intermediate. You revisit and refine your goals of life each and every day as you watch your life proceed and evolve. And you make decisions today that you will thank your future self for making. So living forward, truth is vision gives today a destination. Vision. So we've talked about the letter R in resolve for resilience, the letter E, the first letter E for engagement, and that is engaging life every day, and its persistency and the resilience plays to that. The letter S for service. And serving is not about serving just self, but it's really about being selfless enough to seek to serve so that what you do doesn't just make your life better, but you make other people's lives better. The letter O, organization, planning, structure. Optimal organization is something I have to work on every day. But when it's accomplished, it leaves you feeling good. You thank yourself for putting it together, planning it, and, having that definite, firm plan of action fulfilled. Then the letter L, we must strive, particularly at my age, to keep my mind healthy and vibrant through the neuroplasticity process of simply engaging the opportunity to learn. Not wasting my time with frivolous stuff, but learning. Learning, stimulate the mind, challenge the mind. Just as you would challenge the body for exercise to keep yourself healthy and to live a better quality of life, the same thing is true for the brain. The brain needs the exercise, and learning is one of the best tools to exercise the brain and keep it strong and healthy and keep you in fit mindset as you move through day. And then after that is the letter V, which is, of course, for vision. And, I've talked about visionary mindset and vision. I'm talking about seeing it and believing it, seeing it and making it true. It's not mystical. You can visualize it and you can define it and you can clarify it and you can make it very precise. And over time, you will achieve it because you set your mind to working on it. I don't happen to subscribe to the idea that it simply comes to you. I understand the law of attraction. For me, I think everything that you get in life is because you visualize and you make intentional forward living movements towards getting to it. I'm not going to sit around and wait for something to come. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to make it happen. That pretty much wraps up the visionary part of the thing. Now I'm going to tell you that when we come together again next week, I'm going to break into that last letter in resolve. We talked about RESOL and V. Now there's another E, and that E is for enthusiasm. So we will talk about enthusiasm, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser. What if I told you? What if I told you that even when you don't feel like doing it, you don't feel like getting out of bed, you don't feel like making the effort, you just don't feel that great, something is just not right. Is it wrong to will yourself to be enthused, even though you might think it's bogus? I have reason to believe that it's not bogus at all. I think it's actually a healing mechanism to reset our minds. So enthusiasm has tremendous power. When it's controlled in the right fashion, it is irresistibly compelling. We'll talk about that in our next session when we get together at this time next week on Resolve to Live Forward. I will tell you once again, you're listening to the podcast, and whether you're listening to the audio or actually watching the audio and video, my podcast is on multiple podcast channels through the services of Buzzsprout, including Spotify and the Apple Store, what I used to call the iTunes Store. I also have a YouTube channel, and these podcast videos are on the YouTube channel. And my email, for anyone who does want to communicate with me and is willing to at least engage me and be kind about it, is johnmorrowcoaching@gmail.com. johnmorrowcoaching@gmail.com. Thanks for joining me today. I'm glad you came. We are out of time. I'm going to bid you a fond farewell. Enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget, if you're listening to this on Friday or Saturday of the weekend of March the 6th and 7th, don't forget to spring forward if you live in an area where daylight savings time is coming, because you're going to lose an hour of sleep, but you'll be glad that you did, because otherwise, when you get up on Sunday morning, you're going to be an hour late for wherever you were planning on going. Enough said. John Morrow is saying, until then, remember what I always like to say, no matter what, resolve to live forward. Bye bye for now.